In the hazy light of a late autumn dusk, the isolated island of Ravenwood stood as a testament to ancient lore, its rugged cliffs and moonlit coves whispering secrets of a bygone era. Here, where the realms of the natural and the supernatural intertwined, the werewolf shifters had long governed their territory with a strict, unyielding code. Among these beings, Saria lived a life of quiet resilience, a life marked by duty, hidden longing, and the scars of a past that refused to fade. Saria's days began before the sun's first light, as she moved with measured grace through the mist-shrouded forest paths that wound like silent serpents through the towering pines. Born into a long line of revered protectors of the island, she had inherited both the fierce independence of her ancestors and an unspoken yearning for something more than the rigid expectations of her clan. Her eyes, a striking shade of mossy green, betrayed the turbulent mix of determination and vulnerability that lay beneath her calm exterior. Across the territory, Kale roamed the wild fringes of society, a brooding figure whose presence stirred both fear and fascination among his kin. Once a respected leader, his banishment for defying the stringent traditions of the pack had forced him into the margins of a society that now whispered his name with a mixture of reverence and suspicion. Kale's reputation as a rogue, coupled with his defiant, smoldering gaze, made him a magnet for controversy. His very existence was an affront to the ancient laws that governed their kind, yet there was an undeniable allure in the forbidden charisma he exuded. On a night when the silver glow of a full moon bathed the island in an ethereal light, fate orchestrated the collision of these two solitary souls. Saria, tasked with patrolling the shoreline to ensure no threat loomed near, encountered Kale at a secluded cove. The tide was high, the crashing waves echoing like the distant tumult of a forgotten war. As she moved cautiously along the rocky edge, her senses heightened by the pulse of the nocturnal wild, she heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind her. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice steadied by years of training, though a quiver of apprehension betrayed her composure. Kale emerged from the shadows, a figure sculpted by hardship and destiny, his eyes reflecting a fiery defiance. "I mean no harm," he replied, his tone low and measured, as though choosing his words as carefully as one might select shards of broken glass. "I have been wandering these lands in search of answers, and perhaps redemption." The two locked eyes, and in that fragile moment of silence, the immutable laws of their world seemed to tremble. Saria felt an inexplicable pull, a magnetic force that transcended reason. Over the subsequent days, their clandestine encounters became a dance of peril and desire. Under the pretense of shared patrols along the island's rugged edges, their conversations grew deeper, laced with philosophical musings on duty, legacy, and the burden of secrets that had long weighed upon them. In these stolen moments, dialogue crackled like wildfire between them. "Your scars run deeper than the ones you wear on your skin, Kale," Saria remarked during one evening rendezvous by the flickering light of a hidden bonfire. "Every choice leaves an imprint on the soul." Kale's gaze softened, his voice a murmur against the whispering wind. "And sometimes, those imprints are the very marks that define our destiny." The intensity of their exchange resonated far beyond mere flirtation. It hinted at a shared understanding of rebellion against their predetermined roles. Yet, both were painfully aware that their forbidden connection could unleash the unyielding wrath of the island's ancient laws. For every heartfelt word exchanged and every lingering touch, an invisible debt was accumulated, a debt that might one day demand a terrible price. Amid these entwined lives, an undercurrent of danger permeated every encounter. The Council of Elders, custodians of the sacred traditions, had long kept a vigilant eye on the stirrings within their midst. Rumors of Kale's dissidence and the illicit connection blossoming between him and Saria had begun to ripple through their society like tremors preceding an earthquake. Elders debated in hushed tones within the dim glow of council chambers, their faces etched with worry and stern resolve. They knew that the stability of the pack was threatened by the mingling of unbridled passion and the defiance of convention. While the council's eyes remained fixed on the evolving situation, Saria's inner world was fraught with tumult. Her feelings for Kale, ignited by an irresistible chemistry, confronted the rigid legacy of her family, a legacy fraught with betrayal, sacrifice, and unspeakable secrets. Memories of whispered warnings from her elders echoed in her mind, urging her to shun the path of desire for the sake of duty. Yet, every moment spent in Kale's presence dismantled the walls she had meticulously built around her heart. One chilly evening, as the urban expanse of a distant city peered into the horizon, an ironic juxtaposition to the wild and untamed spirit of the island, Saria found herself torn between two worlds. In the city, modern life pulsed with progressive ideas and blurred boundaries, Yet even there, the spectral touch of tradition loomed large. She had ventured briefly to witness the urban landscapes where ancestors of her kind had woven together the old world with the new. Amid the glittering lights and cacophonous energy, Saria had felt both awe and alienation, a poignant reminder of a destiny that she was meant to defy, or so her heart whispered. During one of their midnight meetings, Kale confided in her a secret that shook the foundations of what she believed was certain. "My estrangement was not only due to my defiant nature," he revealed in a hushed tone, his eyes searching hers for understanding. "There is a prophecy, one that predates even our ancient laws, that speaks of a union powerful enough to alter the fate of our kind. I believe I am meant to lead this change." His words, heavy with both conviction and uncertainty, hung in the air like a fragile promise. Such admissions only deepened the labyrinth of emotions that Saria wrestled with. The consequences of aligning herself with Kale grew ever more perilous, a reality that loomed with the shadow of inevitable retribution from both the council and the community at large. The island, with its mystical ambience and unforgiving traditions, seemed to pulse in warning, as if each crashing wave and gusting wind carried a foreboding omen. The tension escalated during a clandestine meeting in the remnants of an ancient temple nestled deep in the forest. Here, nature's silence was punctuated only by the rustle of leaves and the distant cry of nocturnal creatures. Under an archway overgrown with ivy, Saria and Kale convened with a trusted few who shared their vision of transforming the oppressive ways of the past. The gathering was fraught with anxiety, as every whispered plan and every determined gaze carried the weight of imminent danger. "Change is inevitable, but to achieve it, we must dare to defy our heritage," Kale proclaimed with a fervor that ignited hope in the hearts of those present. His words, though met with uncertainty by some, resonated profoundly with Saria. In that darkened sanctuary, the raw emotion of the moment bridged the gap between rebellion and a desperate need for redemption. Yet even amidst the stirring declarations, an unsettling feeling crept over her, the nagging thought that the past, with all its dark entanglements, was never truly behind them. As days turned into weeks, the forbidden romance blossomed amid the intertwined fates of family legacies and shattered vows. Saria, who had once been the paragon of discipline, was transformed by the powerful allure of Kale. Their conversations grew to encompass dreams of a future unburdened by ancient restrictions, each dialogue weaving together fragments of hope and despair. Every tender glance and every passionate murmur beneath the moonlight further entwined their hearts with the destiny of the island. Yet, for all the intimacy that blossomed between them, the external pressures mounted relentlessly. The elders' discontent reached a fevered pitch, and dissent within the pack simmered with the promise of rebellion. Whispers of betrayal and conspiracies surfaced in hushed tones in the shadowed alcoves of ancient meeting halls. Saria's own family, guardians of the strict traditions, began to distance themselves, their actions speaking louder than any admonishment. The very fabric of her existence started to unravel, caught between the magnetic pull of forbidden love and the crushing weight of duty. In a particularly poignant exchange, as the wind howled through the deserted corridors of the ancestral manor, Saria confronted her internal conflict. "Every step I take with you feels like a defiance of everything I was taught to honor," she confessed, her voice tinged with both desperation and resolve. Kale responded by softly grasping her hand, a gesture that combined both reassurance and a silent promise of a shared future forged in hope. "Saria, sometimes the most profound duty we have is to our own hearts," he murmured. "Only by embracing our true selves can we honor the legacy we wish to create." Their conversation, raw and unfiltered, captured the paradox of their existence. A love that was both a source of profound healing and a harbinger of catastrophic change. Every tender interaction was imbued with the bittersweet knowledge that the decisions they made would ripple through the generations, altering the course of their intertwined fates in ways neither could fully comprehend. As the chapter of their lives unfolded under the relentless stare of the full moon, a tangible air of suspense enveloped the island. The once calm nights now echoed with unspoken threats, and every shadow seemed poised to divulge a new secret. An insidious tension seeped into every crevice of their sanctuary, the promise of a reckoning that was as inevitable as the tide. Even the ancient trees, bearing witness to centuries of history, appeared to lean in closer, as if to listen to the murmurs of destiny that danced among the leaves. With each passing moment, the stakes grew higher. The island's enduring traditions and the whisper of an ancient prophecy created a volatile mix of hope, desperation, and forbidden desire. Saria felt the enormity of what they were about to undertake, as though the very forces of nature conspired to test the strength of their resolve. And so, as the night deepened and the lines between friend and foe blurred beneath the silver gleam of the moonlight, the path ahead remained shrouded in peril and promise, its end still tantalizingly out of reach, its conclusion yet to be sealed by fate. As the pale light of early morning crept over the horizon, the secrets of the island shimmered in new hues. Saria awoke with her heart still heavy from the previous night's confessions, the weight of forbidden romance and family legacy intertwining in her mind. The island's ancient trees rustled softly in the breeze, as if whispering warnings to those who dared traverse the treacherous path between destiny and defiance. Today, every ray of sunlight carried the promise of clarity and the threat of exposure. In the secluded enclave of a weathered estate on the outskirts of the urban sprawl, a place where time itself seemed suspended, Saria had arranged a covert meeting with a small circle of trusted allies. Among them was Marcellus, a sagacious elder with an uncharacteristic tendency to question the rigid doctrines of the past, and Leora, a fierce warrior whose loyalty had been hard-won through blood and sacrifice. These individuals, bound by their own secret grievances with the oppressive traditions, embodied a hope for transformation. Their objective was clear: to forge a plan to challenge the long-established hierarchy and usher in a new era for the shifters. The estate's interior was a silent repository of relics and mementos from eras past, with faded portraits and ancient artifacts adorning the walls. The group gathered in a large, circular chamber at the heart of the building, the space filled with a tense anticipation. Kale, having arrived under the cover of darkness a few hours earlier, stood in quiet defiance near a massive wooden table scarred by the passage of time. He seemed to absorb every detail of the conversation with an intensity that spoke of a man whose very soul was on the brink of revelation. Leora broke the silence with a resolute tone. "We all know the risks we take by defying the ancient code. But if we are to envision a future free from old wounds and endless cycles of retribution, then we must be willing to rewrite our legacy." Marcellus added in a measured voice, "Tradition binds us like chains, yet it is in our nature to seek freedom, even if that freedom means confronting long-held prejudices and our own inner demons." Saria listened intently as the discussion unfolded. The air was electric with possibility, tempered only by the ever-present threat of betrayal from those who would cling to the old ways. She recalled Kale's earlier declaration about the prophecy, a mystery that promised both salvation and turmoil. It was a revelation that had shaken her to her core, forcing her to reassess what she believed about honor, destiny, and sacrifice. During a brief pause in the exchange, Kale offered his perspective. "Every decision we make now echoes through our lineage. For too long, our kind has been shackled by an unforgiving past. I refuse to let our mistakes define us. Instead, I propose a radical approach, an alliance not only among shifters but with those in the modern world who share our yearning for change." His voice was laced with a mixture of hope and defiance. "There are humans who seek truth and justice, and if we open a dialogue, our strength could extend far beyond these shores." The notion of alliance between the supernatural and the modern human world ignited both curiosity and skepticism among the conspirators. Marcellus, known for his wisdom born of decades of silent observation, remarked, "Our survival depends on more than just defying our traditions. It calls for a reinvention, a synthesis of old magic and modern resilience. Yet we must tread with caution. The human world is fraught with complexities that could jeopardize the delicate balance we seek to achieve." Over the ensuing hours, the meeting transformed into an impassioned brainstorming session. Ideas were exchanged like currency, each one a potential key to unlock the chains of the past. Saria scribbled fervently in a weathered journal, capturing snippets of dialogue and raw emotion as they echoed off the stone walls. The interplay of hope and despair wove a tapestry of shared purpose, even as mistrust lingered in the corners of their hearts. In the quiet aftermath of heated deliberations, a silent pact was forged among them. Their mission was to gather further evidence of the elders' corruption and prepare a manifesto that championed a new, inclusive order for their people. Later that day, Saria found herself alone on a rocky outcrop overlooking the vast expanse of the ocean. The rhythmic pounding of the surf against the shore mirrored the cadence of her racing thoughts. As the wind tousled her hair and carried the briny scent of salt, she contemplated the magnitude of her decisions. Every choice carried the potential to alter the course of countless lives. The unresolved tension between duty and desire gnawed at her, a perpetual reminder that the path toward redemption was strewn with sacrifices. Her solitude was abruptly interrupted by the quiet approach of Kale, whose presence brought both comfort and a new layer of complexity to her internal conflict. "I see the weight of the world upon your shoulders," he observed softly as he stepped beside her. His voice was calm and reassuring, a beacon in the chaos of her thoughts. "What troubles you this morning?" Saria hesitated before replying, her words almost lost in the sound of the crashing waves. "I fear that by challenging the very foundations of who we are, we might awaken forces that even we cannot control. What if our quest for change only ushers in darker times?" Cale's gaze remained fixed on the horizon, where the first blush of dawn melted into the vast sky. "Change is never without its price," he murmured. "But to remain shackled by our past is a fate far worse than the uncertainty of a new beginning." Their conversation delved into the realms of philosophy and destiny, exploring the interplay of fate and free will. Cale's words echoed those of the renegade prophets spoken of in ancient myths, a promise that even in the harshest winters, the seed of renewal could bloom when nurtured by courage and conviction. "Our futures are not written in stone, Saria. They are forged every day by the choices we dare to make," he insisted. Just then, a sudden commotion among the conspirators shattered the fragile calm. Leora, her eyes wide with alarm, burst into the outcrop. "We have a problem," she exclaimed, her voice brittle with urgency. "Some of our agents have come back with troubling news. There are signs that the elders have mobilized a force to hunt down any who defy the sacred order. And there are whispers of a traitor in our midst." The accusation sent a chill down Saria's spine. Trust, already a tenuous thread among those striving for change, was now at risk of snapping entirely. "Who would dare betray our cause?" she demanded, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and indignation. Leora glanced around nervously before continuing, "We are not certain yet, but evidence points to someone in our inner circle, possibly someone who has been feeding secrets to the council." The revelation was a dagger thrust into the heart of their burgeoning unity. Every plan, every whispered hope was now imperiled by treachery. In that charged moment, Cale's eyes blazed with an unspoken promise of retribution, and Marcellus's expression darkened with resolve. A heated debate erupted among the conspirators as accusations flew like sparks in a dry forest. "We cannot allow treachery to divide us," Cale declared firmly, his authoritative tone cutting through the clamor. "If the traitor is among us, they must be exposed. There is no room for betrayal in the fight for our collective future." Saria, caught between fear and determination, interjected, "But we must be certain. A false accusation could fracture what little solidarity we have left. We need proof, and we need to root out this venom before it infects us completely." In the ensuing hours, the group split into factions to monitor each other's movements, setting up discreet observations and secret meetings in hidden corners of their stronghold. The atmosphere, once charged with revolutionary fervor, had now taken on the bitter tang of suspicion and paranoia. Every whispered conversation and furtive glance was loaded with the potential for damning evidence against an unknown enemy. That night, as twilight descended with a melancholic grace, Saria returned to a secluded library within the estate, a sanctuary of ancient texts and historical records passed down through generations. She sought solace and guidance in the weathered pages of lore, searching for a key to the mystery of the treachery that threatened her cause. Flipping through the brittle pages, she encountered an obscure entry penned in archaic script, a reference to a historical schism within the shifter community, marked by betrayal and the shattering of kinship. The parallels were unmistakable. In a hushed soliloquy to the silent tomes, Saria mused, "History repeats itself if we allow fear to govern our actions. Can we break the cycle, or are we doomed to be caught in the perpetual loop of treachery and sorrow?" Her words, barely audible, resonated with the timeless struggle of those who dared to challenge destiny itself. At the same time, Cale convened a late-night meeting with his closest confidants in a hidden alcove beneath the ancient cellar of the estate. The candlelit space, marked by the shadows of ages past, became the stage for a pivotal confrontation. "We must act decisively," Cale insisted, his tone resolute. "The traitor in our midst is not just an enemy of our cause, they are the embodiment of the old guard's persistence, their every action aimed at preserving a broken system." His piercing gaze swept over the assembled faces, each reflecting their own internal conflicts of loyalty and betrayal. "Tonight we stake our claim to our destiny. We will monitor communications, intercept coded messages, and if necessary, confront the betrayer directly." This clandestine meeting unveiled a multifaceted web of alliances and enmities. As the conspirators pieced together fragments of suspicious activity, a haunting realization took hold. The betrayal was not an isolated act of malice but part of a larger, more insidious conspiracy engineered by those in power. With every stolen glance and hushed murmur of discontent, the fabric of their rebellion frayed further, threatening to unravel the very hope they fought to preserve. Back on the rocky outcrop, Saria's solitude was interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching once more. This time it was Marcellus, his eyes carrying the storm of internal conflict. "I fear that the cost of our revolution may be higher than we ever imagined," he said in a low, troubled tone. "Betrayal strikes at the core of our unity, and unless we find a way to mend these fractures, the revolution might crumble before it truly begins." Saria's heart ached at the sorrow in his voice, for she too had felt the sting of treachery. "What can we do," she whispered, "when every step toward progress seems to be littered with the remnants of broken trust?" Marcellus's response was measured, yet filled with a resolute hope. "We must be vigilant, and above all, we must trust in the possibility of redemption, both for ourselves and for those who have lost their way." In the solitude of that fateful night, deep beneath a sky laden with unyielding darkness and scattered stars, the conspirators resolved to expose the traitor and restore faith in their cause. Their plan, while fraught with peril, was a testament to their unwavering dedication to change. With evidence slowly coalescing around a single enigmatic figure within their ranks, the group prepared for a confrontation that could either solidify their revolutionary spirit or ignite an all-out war against one another. In the quiet hours before dawn, as the final embers of rebellion smoldered in the shadowed corridors of the estate, Saria penned one final reflection in her journal. Her words, raw and introspective, captured the fragile balance between hope and despair that defined their struggle. "Our journey is a labyrinth of secrets and peril, a dance on the edge of destiny. In our search for redemption, we must not lose ourselves to the darkness that lurks in every betrayal." As she closed her journal and stepped out into the awakening day, the rising sun cast long shadows on the ground, a visual promise that, despite the turmoil and treachery, the truth would eventually emerge from the night. The fate of their revolution, now tinged with the bitter taste of betrayal, hung precariously in the balance. A challenge yet unresolved and a mystery waiting to be unraveled. Midday arrived with a weighty, overcast sky, a perfect mirror to the turbulent emotions swirling through the rebel enclave. The conspirators, their uneasy truce fraying at the edges, gathered in the cavernous depths of an abandoned industrial warehouse repurposed as their temporary headquarters. Amid the sprawling, graffiti-tagged walls and cold concrete floors, distrust mingled with determination as each member carried the burden of hidden truths and mounting suspicions. Saria paced slowly across the dimly lit space, her mind a tempest of conflicting thoughts. She had returned from a solitary expedition into the archives of her family's ancestral home, where forbidden records hinted at a legacy of treachery dating back generations. Each brittle page and faded photograph had whispered secrets that challenged everything she thought she knew about her lineage. The personal revelations pounded at her heart, urging her to reassess her loyalty to the ancient traditions and the established order of her kin. Now, with the possibility of betrayal festering within their close-knit circle, every revelation carried an even greater urgency. Cale, his scarred countenance illuminated by the soft glow of a single overhead lamp, convened an urgent meeting with those closest to him. "We must act swiftly," he declared, his voice resonating with steely resolve. "Our informants in the city have confirmed that the council's enforcers are mobilizing in force, and time is running out for us to secure vital evidence of their corruption." His gaze swept across the room, stopping on each pair of wary eyes. "If we do not expose this betrayal, our revolution will collapse under its own weight." Marcellus, wise yet visibly weary from decades of clandestine battles, interjected with a measured tone. "The documents I recovered detail an ancient pact, one that bound our ancestors to silence and submission. We must use this historical context to reveal that the elders have not only strayed from our noble past but have actively manipulated the legacy of our people for their own gain." His words carried the gravitas of a man who had witnessed the cyclical nature of power and its inevitable abuses. Meanwhile, Leora had taken it upon herself to trail the movements of the council's agents. Venturing through the labyrinthine back alleys of the urban sprawl that fringed their island sanctuary, she gathered snippets of coded messages and overheard fragments of conversations hinting at an impending crackdown. Returning in haste, she burst into the warehouse with urgency etched on her features. "They are moving faster than we expected. I tracked a group of enforcers and intercepted a communication that suggests our traitor may have already alerted them to our plans," she announced, her voice quivering with equal parts anger and concern. The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly. Suspicion now morphed into palpable panic, as old wounds were freshly torn open by the reminder that the enemies of change might be hiding in plain sight. Saria felt her heart constrict, torn between her internal battle and the external threat that now loomed larger than ever. She recalled the cryptic entry in the ancient records, a passage foretelling an era where betrayal would be the precursor to monumental transformation. Could it be that the traitor had unknowingly set the stage for a greater upheaval? Determined to unmask the betrayer, Cale proposed a daring strategy. "We need to orchestrate a controlled encounter," he explained, his voice low yet persuasive. "By baiting the traitor into revealing themselves, we can gather incontrovertible evidence and neutralize the threat within. I suggest we stage a meeting, openly discussing our next move in a location where trust is tested by isolation." His proposal, though fraught with risk, was met with a hesitant nod from the group, all too aware that the margin for error was razor-thin. Saria volunteered to serve as the intermediary. With the burden of her dual loyalty, to both her family legacy and the revolutionary cause, she knew the role was as dangerous as it was pivotal. "I will arrange the meeting," she declared, her voice resolute. "I must confront not only the traitor but also the demons of my past that have haunted me from within. Perhaps in this confrontation, I will finally understand what it truly means to break free from the chains of tradition." Her declaration struck a chord with many, as each member silently vowed to rediscover the strength within themselves to challenge a fate dictated by ancient edicts. As the meeting loomed on the horizon, the conspirators prepared meticulously. Detailed instructions were drafted on how to secure the rendezvous point, a secluded, crumbling villa on the outskirts of the urban district, long abandoned and overrun by ivy and time. The villa, once a stately manor, now bore the scars of neglect, its echoing corridors ideal for clandestine exchanges yet treacherous with hidden dangers. Its desolation symbolized the decay of old orders and the potential for something new to emerge from the rubble. On the eve of the planned encounter, Saria found herself ensnared in restless sleep. Her dreams were haunted by flashes of her ancestors, faces twisted with anguish and regret, murmuring warnings of repeating cycles of betrayal. The boundary between past and present blurred, merging into a single tapestry of emotions. When she awoke at dawn, her eyes, sore from a sleepless night, burned with a determined light. In that moment, Saria knew that every sacrifice, every risk taken in the name of change, was a step towards redeeming not only her own troubled legacy but also the fractured hopes of her people. The following day, under a slate-gray sky, Saria arrived at the villa with a heavy heart and a mind sharpened by the harsh realities that awaited her. Cale, Marcellus, Leora, and a few trusted allies were already stationed in nearby nooks, their instructions communicated through discreet signals to avoid detection. The villa's grand yet decaying entry hall loomed before her, a silent witness to the storms of revolution that were about to shake its ancient foundations. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation and trepidation. Saria steeled herself as she took a seat at a long weathered table in the center of the hall, her eyes searching the fading murals and shattered chandeliers for any omen of what was to come. As the clock's measured ticks filled the silence, she murmured softly to herself, "Let the truth be our guide, even if it cuts through the darkness." Soon, the door creaked open to reveal a lone figure emerging from the shadows, a member of the inner circle whose face was familiar yet marked by uncertainty. The man's hesitant steps betrayed his internal conflict as he approached the table. I have come," he stuttered, his voice wavering under the weight of imminent judgment. His presence confirmed what the conspirators had feared. The traitor had come forward, albeit reluctantly, perhaps compelled by a conscience racked with guilt or by the realization that the walls were closing in. The gathered allies exchanged wary glances while Cale's eyes narrowed, calculating the man's every gesture. "Speak," Cale commanded, his tone brooking no argument. "Tell us what you know of the Council's plans and the extent of your involvement with them." The man's face paled as he slowly unburdened his secret. "I was once a loyal servant to the Council," he confessed, voice trembling as he revealed hidden truths. "I was entrusted with the sacred scrolls of our founders, scrolls that recorded not only our victories but also our darkest transgressions. I have been tasked by one of the elders to ensure that these documents remain hidden from those who would use them to dismantle the status quo. But over time, my doubts grew and I began to see the corruption in their actions. I tried to right my wrongs by passing on pieces of these records to trusted souls. I never meant for harm to come to any of you." His confession struck a deep chord within the room, igniting a torrent of conflicted emotions. The traitor's words revealed a man torn between duty to a corrupted order and a dawning awareness of the need for transformation. Saria's heart clenched as she recognized the familiar patterns of betrayal, guilt, and redemption that had haunted her family for generations. Marcellus, his voice heavy with regret, stepped forward. Your actions, though misguided by loyalty to a destructive order, have opened a window into our history, he intoned. Now, with this knowledge, we possess a weapon against the Council. The ancient scrolls corroborate that our ancestors once envisioned a society free from tyranny. We must use this wisdom to challenge the present. His words hung in the air like a benediction, offering a glimpse of hope amid the unfolding chaos. Cale's expression, initially stern and unyielding, softened marginally as he absorbed the traitor's admission. We all have been haunted by our past, he said quietly. But the measure of our character is not in the mistakes we make, but in our willingness to confront them and change our course. His voice, both forgiving and resolute, reverberated through the cramped hall, drawing nods from those who had doubted their own capacity for redemption. Yet, even as this confession rekindled the flicker of hope, Leora interjected with a note of caution. We cannot allow this moment of vulnerability to be exploited, she warned. There are forces aligned with the old guard who would seize upon this confession to discredit our cause and plunge us into further chaos. We must act with precision and integrity. Her eyes burned with an intensity born of countless battles fought in the name of justice. The delicate balance of trust, now so precariously restored by truth, hung in the space between them. Saria's mind raced as she contemplated the implications of the traitor's revelations. The sacred scrolls, hidden away for centuries, were more than relics of a distant past. They were keys to a future unshackled by the relentless grip of outdated traditions. If they could be publicly unveiled, the Council's authority would crumble, and the path to genuine transformation might finally open. However, exposing such secrets also carried the risk of igniting a bloodshed that could forever scar their community. Determined to harness this newfound leverage, Cale proposed a daring plan. We must secure the scrolls and reveal their contents to all, he declared passionately. This is our opportunity to rewrite the narrative and reclaim our heritage. I propose that we hold a gathering, a public forum where every shifter and even our human allies can witness the truth. His words resonated deeply with the assembled rebels, their eyes reflecting both the determination and the burden of forging a future out of the ruins of the past. Saria hesitated, torn by the enormity of the decision. But what if the Council retaliates with overwhelming force? She questioned, her voice quivering with both fear and a flicker of hope. What if in our quest for redemption, we unleash a storm of retribution that we cannot weather? Her words, heavy with the weight of foreboding, were met with silence before Cale answered firmly, We move forward with our eyes open. Every revolution carries risks, but stagnation is a far greater threat. Our destiny demands that we confront the darkness so we may ignite the light of a brighter future. The meeting culminated with a cautious consensus. The scrolls would be retrieved under the cover of night, and the public forum would be scheduled to expose the Council's duplicity. With plans set into motion, the conspirators dispersed into the sprawling night, each acutely aware that the forthcoming hours might well determine the fate of their world. As dusk crept over the city, the group reconvened beneath a tapestry of sparkling stars and neon glows, a striking juxtaposition between the ancient and modern realms they straddled. In a hidden courtyard lined with overgrown ivy and flickering lanterns, Saria, Cale, Marcellus, Leora, and the repentant traitor prepared for the perilous mission ahead. Every heartbeat was synchronized with the rhythm of destiny, each step a defiant march toward a horizon where the truth would stand naked against the lies of the past. In that moment, the villa, the warehouse, and the countless memories of an age long gone converged to create an epic scene of revolution. Saria felt a surge of renewed strength as she resolved to lead not only a battle against oppression but an internal fight against the ghosts that haunted her lineage. She whispered to herself, In embracing our faults, we may finally transform them into the very pillars upon which a new legacy is built. Under the gaze of a watchful moon and the silent testimony of ancient ruins, the conspirators set out into the night, their resolve a blazing beacon in the enveloping darkness. Every breath and every step was a step towards justice, healing, and perhaps redemption for a people long ensnared by the chains of their forebears. The night crackled with possibility, and the foundations of a long-oppressed society trembled on the brink of a revolution that could alter the course of destiny itself. As the group melted into the shadows and the first glimmers of dawn teased the horizon, Saria's thoughts lingered on one final, resounding realization. Every act of defiance, every painful confession, and every risk taken was ultimately a stride toward a future where truth would not be silenced, and the sins of the past would be purged by the resolute spirit of change. With a steady gaze and a heart tempered by fire, she vowed that no matter the cost, Their collective journey would redefine destiny and illuminate the path to a long-awaited epiphany. Twilight settled over the city in a haze of uncertainty, casting elongated shadows that merged with the desolation of abandoned streets and forgotten alleys. The conspirators, their hearts heavy with the burden of past betrayals and the hope of a renewed future, now faced the crucible of their audacious plan to seize the scrolls. In an atmosphere thick with tension and anticipation, every step toward the ancient archive of secrets felt like a perilous stride into the jaws of destiny. Deep in a neglected quarter of the urban sprawl, hidden behind the facade of crumbling brick and the echo of time's relentless march, lay the secret repository where the council's treasured scrolls were rumored to be guarded. Kale, Saria, Marcellus, Leora, and their newly reformed ally, still burdened by the stigma of past misdeeds, mustered their resolve as they prepared for the breach. The air was cool and laden with mist, the distant hum of a city that had long forgotten the old ways, a stark contrast to the fervor that animated the group. The mission was born out of desperation and a fierce determination to rewrite the narrative of their people. As they huddled in a narrow courtyard lit only by the intermittent glow of far-off street lamps, Kale outlined the plan with a quiet intensity. "We move in 2 groups," he whispered, his tone resolute as he spread a tattered map on a dented metal table. "Group A, led by Leora, will create a diversion at the eastern gate. Group B, with me, Saria, and Marcellus, will infiltrate the archive through the lesser-known, abandoned tunnel. Every second counts. If the council discovers our movements, our chance to expose their corruption will vanish." Saria's mind raced with both apprehension and determination. Memories of the library, the ancient texts, and the painful revelations of her lineage danced in her thoughts, spurring her to action despite the inherent dangers. "We must trust our instincts and the strength that has carried us this far," she murmured, her voice barely audible above the murmur of the night. "This is the moment when we confront not just our oppressors, but the ghosts of our past that have haunted us for generations." Her words resonated deeply, forging a bond of shared resolve among those present. With a final exchange of determined glances, the group split into their respective teams. Leora and her contingent stealthily moved toward the eastern gate. The urban night was fraught with peril, yet the defiant glimmer in each conspirator's eyes eclipsed any fear of detection. Within moments, the noise and chaos of the diversion erupted, a carefully orchestrated uproar that shattered the nocturnal silence, drawing the council's enforcers away from their true target. Meanwhile, Kale, Saria, and Marcellus slipped silently into the maze of dilapidated tunnels that promised safe passage to the hidden archive. The subterranean passageways were damp, the walls adorned with ancient graffiti and symbols of the Old Covenant. Every drip of water echoed like the distant heartbeat of the city, amplifying the gravity of the situation. Under the fractured light of a flickering bulb, the trio advanced cautiously, the weight of imminent confrontation hanging like a specter over their heads. As they navigated the narrow corridors, Saria's thoughts turned inward. She recalled the vivid recollections of her childhood, the stories passed down in hushed tones by her elders, the memories that spoke of a time when honor and sacrifice defined one's very existence. Now those same stories fueled her determination. Each step forward was a rebellion against the oppressive dogma that had silenced generations. Her resolve burned fiercely, a flame unwilling to be extinguished by the darkness that threatened to engulf them. In the depths of the tunnel, an unexpected presence stirred, a subtle movement that hinted at watchers hidden amidst the shadows. Marcellus halted abruptly, his eyes narrowing as he whispered, "We are not alone. Isensaias upunus." "Stay alert." The caution in his voice rippled through the group, heightening their awareness. Kale responded in a low, measured tone, "Keep to the shadows and let no one see us. Our only chance is to remain unseen until we reach our destination." A collective stillness fell, punctuated only by the soft echo of their guarded breaths. The passageway eventually opened into a vast, arched chamber. Here, the repository lay before them, an imposing vault with walls lined in dark stone and guarded by intricate symbols that evoked the ancient covenant. The scrolls, the very evidence of the council's duplicity, were secured behind a massive iron-bound door. As Kale and Saria exchanged a determined nod, Marcellus took his position near the door, his hands working deftly to manipulate the aged locking mechanism. The tension was palpable. A single misstep could set off an alarm that would jeopardize not only their mission but the lives of everyone who had dared to dream of change. Time seemed to dilate as Marcellus meticulously deciphered the lock's archaic design, his weathered fingers dancing over worn metal. The minutes stretched into what felt like hours, each second laden with the possibility of discovery. Saria's heart pounded in her chest as she clutched a small dagger for reassurance. "Hurry, Marcellus," she urged softly, her voice laced with anxious urgency. "If we do not act soon, our window of opportunity will close, and the secrets we've fought so long to unearth might vanish forever." Suddenly, a sharp click echoed through the chamber. The lock yielded. The heavy door creaked open with reluctant groans, revealing a dimly lit room filled with ancient scrolls carefully stacked on weathered shelves. The sight was both awe-inspiring and foreboding. These documents contained the legacy of a people long divided between truth and manipulation. The conspirators stepped forward with a blend of reverence and determination, fully aware that what lay within these walls could rewrite history. Inside the archive, the air was thick with dust and the whispers of untold stories. Cale led the way, carefully lifting one of the scrolls to inspect its contents. The delicate parchment crinkled under his touch as he deciphered the faded script, a testament to a time when honor and integrity were the cornerstones of their culture. Each line revealed hidden truths about past conflicts, alliances, and betrayals that had fueled the council's hold on power. Saria lingered nearby, her eyes scanning the rows of ancient knowledge, seeking confirmation of the prophecies that had haunted her dreams. The vulnerable beauty of the scrolls was shattered by an abrupt disturbance, a sudden noise from the entrance of the vault. For a moment, the conspirators froze, their eyes widening in silent alarm. Leora's voice crackled over the comlink, urgent and strained. "We have been compromised. The enforcers are converging on our location. I repeat, security breach at the east gate. Move now." The voice of their comrade, laced with palpable fear, sent ripples of panic through the assembled trio. In that fleeting heartbeat of chaos, the once quiet chamber became a battlefield of conflicting emotions. Marcellus swiftly gathered a few chosen scrolls into a leather satchel, while Cale and Saria exchanged a glance that held both sorrow and steely resolve. "This isn't the time for hesitation," Cale murmured, his voice a blend of urgency and grief. "We must secure what we have and vanish into the labyrinth beyond. The truth must be preserved, even if it means we sacrifice everything to keep it from falling into corrupt hands." The sound of heavy footsteps and raised voices from above grew louder, reverberating through the ancient stone as if heralding an inevitable reckoning. With a synchronized effort born of desperation and unity, the trio retraced their steps through the winding tunnel. Every moment was a perilous race against time, every shadow a potential ambush. Saria's mind reeled with the enormity of their undertaking. The scrolls were not merely relics, but keys to dismantling the oppressive regime that had manipulated generations. In the fragile hope that the truths contained within could ignite a renaissance of justice, she pressed on with unyielding determination. Outside, the night air was now punctuated with the sounds of pursuit, a cacophony of shouts, the clash of armor, and the relentless pounding of enforcers on ancient doors. Leora and her diversion team were engaged in a desperate standoff with the council's forces, their battleground a chaotic chessboard of wits and valor. Every explosive sound from the east reminded those in the tunnel that time was a merciless adversary. As Cale led the retreat through a concealed passage known only to a few, his mind churned with a mixture of indignation and sorrow. "We did all we could to bring the truth to light," he whispered to Saria as they moved quickly through the labyrinth. "But with each step, the sacrifices multiply. Our people have suffered in silence for too long, and tonight, we risk everything to break the chains." Saria's eyes glistened with unshed tears, reflecting not only the danger of their flight but also the weight of unspoken goodbyes and the looming possibility of loss. Their escape was a harrowing ballet of evasion, a series of near misses, heart-stopping pauses, and moments when the line between survival and capture blurred into uncertainty. Deep within the network of underground corridors, the conspirators encountered unexpected allies, a small band of rebels who had long eluded the council's grasp and had been awaiting the moment to lend their strength to the cause. Together, their collective forces formed a fragile chain of hope, enabling them to push forward even as the threat of recapture loomed like a dark specter. In a narrow corridor lit by the feeble glow of emergency lights, Marcellus paused to catch his breath. "It's moments like these," he rasped, "that test our mettle. The scrolls, the truth, they are our beacon in this storm of treachery and despair." His voice, though tired, carried an unwavering conviction. Saria, having gathered herself, offered a determined nod as she clutched the satchel tightly. "We must make it to the safe house," she declared. "There we can regroup and prepare for the public forum. The revelations we now carry will be our trump card against the tyranny that has held us captive for far too long." Every turn of the corridor heightened their awareness of the danger that lurked behind every corner. The distant echoes of pursuit, the adrenaline that spiked with each footstep, and the shared glance of resolute solidarity among the rebels reinforced the gravity of their mission. Even as the walls of the underground chamber closed in around them, their minds soared with the promise of a new dawn, a dawn where truth reigned and justice, long delayed, would finally prevail. At length, after what seemed like an interminable stretch of evasion and resilience, the group emerged into an expansive, hidden courtyard nestled within a derelict building that had once been a sanctuary of hope. There, under the watchful eyes of flickering street lamps and the silent stars overhead, they made their temporary stand. The scrolls were secured, the secrets now safely in their possession, and the conspirators could finally allow themselves a brief moment of respite. Yet the ambient tension remained taut, a reminder that the public forum they had planned was both their last great gambit and the final convergence of all that they had fought against. Before the brief lull could settle into a semblance of calm, an urgent commotion erupted from across the courtyard. Figures clad in the regalia of the council's enforcers surged forward, their intent unmistakable as they advanced on the rebels' hideout. The crowd scattered in a well-rehearsed rush, a chaotic scramble that sent ripples of shock and dread through the assembled few. In that moment, the safe house transformed into a crucible of imminent confrontation, where the outcome would determine the future course of their rebellion. Kale and Saria found themselves side by side once more, the weight of their shared destiny pressing down like an inexorable tide. "This is it," Kale said quietly, his eyes meeting hers with steely resolve. "Our path diverges now, between the reclaiming of our heritage and the final stand against those who would silence us forever." His declaration, laden with a poignant mix of hope and fatalism, resonated as the distant rumble of footsteps signaled the encroachment of their pursuers. Saria, steeling herself against the rising tide of fear, replied, "We have come too far to falter now. Every sacrifice, every betrayal has led us to this defining moment. Let our actions tonight be the spark that ignites the dawn of a new era." As the enforcers closed in, their shouts and the clash of determined souls became the anthem of a struggle that transcended mere survival, a battle for redemption, for truth, and for the future of a people long chained by the tyranny of secrets and lies. In the charged chaos that ensued, the rebels, buoyed by desperation and unwavering resolve, raised their voices and formed an impenetrable wall of resistance. Every confrontation was a testament to their journey, a journey marked by heartbreak, sacrifice, and the ever-present glimmer of hope that redemption was possible even in the darkest hours. And as the night bore witness to the final collision between past and future, the rebels fought on, their collective spirit a beacon of promise that even amidst chaos and bloodshed, the truth would eventually emerge triumphant. Their struggle, fierce and unyielding, had reached a crescendo, a moment suspended between the relentless clamor of justice and the looming threat of obliteration. As the first light of a new day began to break over the horizon, the rebels prepared for what might be their final stand. In that fragile pause before the storm, every heart beat with the unspoken vow to protect the truth at all costs. Every soul present felt the weight of history, yet also sensed an undeniable surge of possibility, a belief that within the crucible of conflict, new hope could be forged. In the waning moments of that harrowing night, as the rebels braced against the onslaught, Saria's eyes shone with an inner fire that defied the darkness. "We stand at the crossroads of fate," she declared, her voice resonant and unwavering. "Let the courage of our convictions carry us beyond this night, to a future where the chains of the past are shattered and truth reigns free." With that, the clarion call of revolution merged with the beating hearts of the few who dared defy destiny, setting the stage for the ultimate confrontation, one that would decide whether the long-forgotten legacy of their people could be reborn in the light of redemption. In the uncertain gray of early morning, the safe house, now transformed into a makeshift fortress by the rebels, braced for its ultimate confrontation. With the stolen scrolls clutched tightly in hand, the diverse coalition of shifters and human allies prepared for the long-awaited public forum. They planned not only to expose the corruption of the council but to challenge the very foundations that had shackled their existence for generations. The air hummed with a mix of adrenaline and solemnity, as if the world itself waited, poised on the cusp of irrevocable transformation. Saria stood at the forefront of the gathered assembly, her eyes reflecting a steely determination forged in the crucible of hardship. Before her, an amphitheater carved into the ancient ruins of an old civic center in the city awaited its moment, a perfect stage where history and modernity collided. The crowd, a sea of apprehension and hope, consisted of shifters clad in both ancestral regalia and modern attire, alongside sympathetic humans who had come to believe in justice. The rebels' message was clear: The truth, long suppressed by manipulated records and deceit, could no longer be silenced. Kale appeared by Saria's side, his presence both commanding and enigmatic. His countenance, marked by scars both physical and emotional, displayed an intensity that belied the measured calm of his words. Today, we reclaim not only our history but also the future that rightfully belongs to every soul suppressed by tyranny, he declared, his voice echoing across the ancient stone and melding with the murmurs of the audience. The scrolls we now hold carry the legacy of our ancestors, not of oppression but of valor and truth. The air charged with collective anticipation, Marcellus stepped forward, holding aloft one of the recovered scrolls. These documents, these sacred records, tell the true story of our people, one shrouded in betrayal and manipulated by those who sought to remain in power. It is time for a reckoning, he pronounced, his tone laced with the gravitas of someone who had witnessed the corruption firsthand. Yet amidst the fervor of revolutionary zeal, something unexpected stirred beneath the surface of the celebration. In the mix of their allies stood a figure whose gaze held both remorse and resolute determination, a quiet observer whose presence had been largely unremarked until now. Leora, once a fervent defender on the front lines, began to exchange furtive glances with Kale. It was a look laden with unspoken understanding and a secret that threatened to upend the delicate unity they had built. As the public forum progressed, subtle tensions rippled beneath the surface, hinting that the true nature of their struggle was far more complex than a simple fight against an oppressive council. As the speeches and unveiling of the scrolls reached a fevered pitch, a sudden disturbance broke the determined cadence of the proceedings. The council's enforcers, once thought to be kept at bay by the calculated distractions set by Leora's team, stormed the amphitheater. Their arrival was not a surprise. They had been expecting some form of rebellion, but their force was overwhelming. A harsh counterbalance to the hope that had blossomed moments before, the enforcers' presence was a brutal reminder of the danger that had always lurked just beyond the threshold of revolution. In a rapid flurry of movement, chaos erupted. Shifters and humans alike scrambled for safety, while the enforcers clashed with the rebels in the open. Amid the turmoil, Saria's mind raced with both the resolve to protect the truth and the terror of impending bloodshed. "Hold fast," she cried, her voice cutting through the din of clashing metal and anguished shouts. "Do not let the council silence us with fear. We stand for truth." In the midst of the chaos, Kale's eyes locked with Saria's, and an unspoken pact was affirmed between them. But as the battle raged on, new evidence began to surface, one that shattered the clarity of their mission and exposed a twist that none had anticipated. Hidden among the scrolls, inscribed in an almost imperceptible hand, was a series of documents that revealed an astonishing truth. Kale had been more deeply enmeshed with the council than anyone had believed. The documents indicated that years ago, when Kale was banished for his defiant desires, he had made a secret pact with a powerful council member. His decision to rebel had not been solely driven by ideology, it was also a calculated move to secure a personal vendetta, a quest for a deeper power that lay hidden in the ancient rites of his lineage. In a startled hush that momentarily stilled the roar of conflict, one of Kale's closest aides, an observant young shifter whose eyes had witnessed too much, stepped forward. "Kale, what is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his voice trembling with a mix of betrayal and disbelief. "These records, they suggest that your defiance was orchestrated, that your goal was never purely to liberate our people but to seize control from within." The accusation rippled through the rebels like a shockwave. Saria's heart pounded furiously as she struggled to reconcile the man she had come to trust with the hidden truths now laid bare. Kale's face, usually so composed, betrayed a flicker of inner turmoil. His eyes darted around the arena, meeting the accusatory stares of trusted allies and skeptical onlookers alike. I did what I had to do," he stammered, his voice faltering. "Every man has his secrets. My choices were born from a wounded heart and a desire for power to right past wrongs. I never intended to harm our people. I sought to create a force that could challenge the council's tyranny more effectively." A chorus of murmurs cascaded through the crowd as the revelation split the unity of the rebellion. Saria stepped forward, her own pain intermingled with a steadfast determination. "Kale," she said softly yet resolutely, "if you truly believe that your actions would bring forth justice, then you must stand before us and account for your hidden bargains. Our cause is founded on transparency and the hope that truth, no matter how bitter, can set us free." Her challenge echoed with a poignant blend of heartbreak and necessity, a demand for accountability amidst the storm. Before Kale could respond, the enforcers renewed their assault with renewed vigor, their coordinated attacks aiming to shatter any semblance of order. Amid the renewed melee, Saria took the scroll with the incriminating documents and raised it high for all to see. "Here lies the truth of our struggle," she declared, her voice ringing out over the clamor. "The path to redemption is marred by our imperfections. We must now decide if we can forgive the transgressions that have been committed in the name of change, or if we must rebuild our legacy upon the pure light of honesty." As the rebels and council forces collided, an intense dialogue unfurled in the eyes of the people. A collective choice between vengeance, redemption, and the willingness to embrace even the darkest parts of their history in pursuit of a higher purpose. The tension in the amphitheater was palpable. Marcellus, weathered by countless battles and heavy with the wisdom of ages, spoke in a voice that resonated with a solemn authority. "Every revolution is stained by sacrifice. It is not the absence of betrayal but our response to it that defines our future. Let us not allow the sins of the past to anchor us. Instead, we must face them, learn from them, and rise above them." Amid the brutal struggle and the painful revelations, a miraculous quiet fell. One by one, influential members of the crowd began to lower their weapons. Even some of the council's own enforcers hesitated, clearly moved by the raw sincerity of Marcellus's words and the unyielding spirit of the assembled people. In that brief moment of collective pause, Saria recognized an opportunity, a chance to pivot the trajectory of their uprising. "We have uncovered secrets that cut to the core of our identities," she said, her voice carrying an emotional timbre. "We can choose to let these truths divide us, or we can bind them into the foundation of our renewal. I implore each of you to look into your hearts and decide, do we continue to serve the agenda of power, or do we embrace the difficult path of unity and honest transformation?" Cale, now standing amid the charged silence, surveyed the faces around him. His eyes, once blazing with the fire of rebellion, now wavered with regret and the weight of his hidden transgressions. "I cannot undo the choices I made," he admitted, his voice a low murmur overwhelmed by the gravity of the moment. "But I can stand with you now and I ask for your forgiveness. Let us now forge a new path, where transparency triumphs over deceit, and unity is born from understanding." His plea, raw and sincere despite its origins and ambition, hung in the air, a challenge to the cynicism that had long ruled their hearts. In that fateful moment, the rebellion reached its ultimate turning point. The people, moved by the courage of those who dared to confront the hard truths of their past, began to rally not around a single leader but around the shared vision of a reformed community, a community where the cycle of betrayal and retribution could finally be broken. Decisions were made not by decree but by a collective resolve that recognized the inherent flaws in every human heart. The battle that ensued was no longer a simple clash of arms but a powerful, symbolic strife between the old order and the birth of a new future defined by difficult truths. The council's enforcers, seeing the changing tides and the overwhelming demonstration of unity, gradually retreated, leaving behind the echo of their footsteps as a reminder of the transient nature of power wielded through oppression. In the aftermath, the scrolls were unrolled for all to see, their parchment bearing both the weight of historical transgressions and the promise of a redeemed future. As the sun rose higher, its golden light washing over the assembly, Saria and Cale, now bound by a shared commitment to transparency, joined hands. Their eyes met in a silent vow to rebuild on the basis of truth and mutual accountability. Marcellus and Leora, alongside the countless members of their coalition, began the arduous task of drafting a new charter, one that would enshrine justice, acknowledge past misdeeds, and champion the possibility of redemption. In that defining hour, amidst the ruins of shattered traditions and the hopeful murmurs of a reawakened populace, the rebels stepped forward into a future uncharted. The Forum, once a battlefield of conflicting ideologies, had transformed into a cauldron of regeneration, where every voice, every tear, and every sigh of regret was woven into the fabric of a shared destiny. The journey ahead promised challenges beyond measure, but also a radiant possibility, the hope that by confronting the darkness within, they could ignite a new dawn founded on the luminous power of truth. In the weeks and months that followed, the city witnessed a quiet revolution, a renaissance not of violent conquests but of healing and reformation. The council was reconstituted under the watchful eyes of the people, and the ancient records were used not as instruments of control, but as lessons from which future generations could learn. Saria, Cale, Marcellus, and Leora, though forever marked by the trials they had endured, became emblematic of the possibility of forgiveness and the strength that emerges from embracing one's deepest flaws. Even as the scars of the past remained, they served as reminders that the path to transcendence is often paved with the remnants of old errors reformed by courage and truth. The community, now knit together by a resolve to never repeat the mistakes of history, embarked on a journey of reconciliation, a transformation where every fallen enemy could be reconciled with the survivor, and every betrayal was met with the possibility of redemption. Thus, as the new era unfurled with quiet majesty across the revitalized cityscape, a tapestry of modern determination intertwined with ancient wisdom, the story of their struggle became a living testament to the unyielding spirit of change. It was a story that spoke not only of the battles fought in the murky corridors of power but of the enduring capacity of the human heart to rise above darkness and embrace its own brilliance. And in that final, resounding moment, as the echoes of the past merged with the promise of tomorrow, the rebels and their allies looked toward a future where every soul had a voice, every truth was celebrated, and every broken promise had the chance to be transformed.